down this name on YouTube.
I'm very late coming to the whole SOPA thing. I'm sick of hearing about it, to be honest with you. Now, SOPA did not pass in its present form. However, what they cannot achieve overtly, they will achieve covertly. In other words, now that SOPA, the big fat bill, hasn't passed, what will happen is you will get little bills showing up or tags on bills that achieve the same rules. The companies trying to push this through see the end of their life in front of them. They see there's so much change going on so quickly that they don't think they can adapt. So what they're trying to do is force the world to accept their business model, even though their business model is now flawed, even and wasn't before. A very long time ago, the whole idea of thinking about something and writing it down and passing that information along was free and open. And once you wrote something down and that information made it out into the ecosystem, it was there and people could use it. And someone said, you know, if I grow grain and I take the grain to the market and I sell that grain, the only reason I can sell the grain is because there's only so much grain every year. People grow other things, or crops are good or bad. That determines the price of grain. I can sell that grain for people to consume because it's precious, because there is a limited supply. Let's do the same thing with information. Let's force people not to be able to make their own version of the information. Let's force people not to be able to use that information unless they pay. Copyright and patents and intellectual property came about. It's gotten to the point now where you can't turn around without running into a patent. I'm afraid of showing that name, these names on the back wall behind my videos. I understand there's a rule that when you're shooting a video, that copyright, for example, on t-shirts and things, there's an existing law that came about, I don't know, maybe in the 60s or something, that's even though that's copyrighted, you can still show it in a video because that's fair use, this thing called fair use. Why fair use exists is to allow people to create new things. I can't take a new mechanism, something someone patented and invented, and put it in my own device and call it mine. But what I can do is take a video of the street and a vehicle that has that new device in it can drive by and they can't come sue me because their device was in that vehicle and therefore copyright or patent, and now they want a chunk of my video. That's where fair use comes in. Fair use also comes in when you're making a parody. If you are making fun of something. I always thought fair use was supposed to come in also when you were trying to educate people, and I've heard that sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. That's gotten very gray over the years. So what is the target of SOPA? What is their official line? Well, there are places on the internet where you can go to a web page and you can do a search, and that web page will have a link to someplace else on the internet, some file server somewhere on the planet that may be affected by different laws, for example, that contains the link of a copyrighted material, copyrighted movie or TV show or whatever. For the longest time, they've had to go after the holders of the material only, and they weren't able to so easily go after the people who presented the links. Now what they want to do is they want to go after the websites that contain the links. Now this is what's called a slippery slope in the legal world. Once you tell someone that they can't talk about a link is talking about something. A link is pointing. That's a link. Once you start doing this, taking that first step to preventing people from talking about things that the government and the corporations don't want you talking about. The government are the ones we have put in charge, that we the people have put in charge to keep us organized. And the companies and the corporations are the ones who have the money to influence the government. It's gotten to the point now where citizens don't have the ability to petition the government because there's so much noise in the background, and the only people who are paying The only people who can afford to pay to talk to the government anymore are giant corporations. The corporations are the ones writing these laws, and they're handing them to some politician and handing the politician a tremendous amount of influence and money and saying, look, push this law through and we'll pay for all of these ads that come out and you will get elected next time. You'll keep your job. You'll be successful. And the politicians are following through with it because that's how our system works. He with the money wins. So what would happen if SOPA passed? Let me think. Companies would be terrified of presenting links from just anybody. So not just anybody would be allowed to put links up. So on Facebook, for example, I imagine a world where Facebook would not let normal everyday people put up links, but there's something else, there's some other kind of link on Facebook already. They're called advertisements. The only links that you would have to click on, the only place you would have to go from Facebook to somewhere else would be through an advertisement. And that wouldn't just be Facebook. And I'm just tackling Facebook because they're the biggest thing on the web that everybody clicks on. It would be every website, and especially the small ones, because the small people like myself who have websites can't afford lawyers. What I want to know is, I think every single one of my blog entries has a link on it. That kind of thing couldn't be stood for anymore, because one of those places might have a copyright violation, and they wouldn't sue me. According to SOPA, they would go after Blogger, because that's where my blog is hosted. And besides, Blogger has deeper pockets. So would it come down to the point where Tumblr and Blogger and Twitter wouldn't allow external links anymore unless they're paid verified advertisements? The law of SOPA would create this utopia for corporations where the only way to get from one point to another would be through their paid advertisements, through their portals. I can't imagine how a search engine could exist in this internet. I don't know how they could possibly exist. In my mind, they would simply have to vanish off of the internet. I don't know. It's a complete different kind of world that someone else is looking for, and I don't like that world. I'm glad it didn't pass. I am also terrified that it's just going to be piecemealed and nickel and dimed into reality, and I wonder what happened to our government. There was no one point where our government failed us. It has been eroded by the cancer of the endless cycle of campaigning. So many politicians now, that's all they're about, is the next election. And they don't care what happens. I mean, the politics are all about, am I going to have a job when the next election goes through? The politics are not about what's good for the people. My constituents voted me in for a reason. All of that stuff is a side effect. And it has gotten to the point where our democracy is dying from this cancer. And I'm terribly sad about this. And I'm sorry I lived to witness this day, and I fear for my child growing up in this world.